welcome to Plant Fact Friday this week. We are in the Gardener's Show House. I'm Alex.
I'm Heather.
And we are here to talk about plants that have literally risen above the need for soil. Heather, tell us what these plants are.
Well, these are air plants. Air plants are a member of the bromeliad family, and I have here a representative of this family. The most well-known member is the pineapple. And this is the only edible fruit in the bromeliad family, but can't you see the resemblance? They're definitely cousins or something. So air plants are in the genus Talansia, which includes 650 or so members. And these members have a lot of variety because they're native to North, Central, and South America, but their habitats can be anywhere from the desert to the mountains to the forest and anything in between. So we have some notable examples of air plants that I want to show you. First and foremost, if you have been to the southeastern United States, you've probably seen this plant draped all over pretty much everything. This is Spanish moss. Now we just learned it's not moss, it's a Talansia. It's also not Spanish, so that's pretty deceptive right there. Common names, I tell you.
Yeah.
But that's probably, I would say, the most well-known Talansia. What's another example?
This example is Talansia bulbosa. So you can see it has these big bulbous ends, these cool octopus tentacle-like leaves hanging down. What's really cool about this plant is it's native to the tropical rainforest, and this bulb is actually hollow to allow ants to live inside of this plant.
Ants in its plant.
Ants in its
That's
plant.
So cool.
Say that 10 times. It's hard. So this is a myrmecophyte, ants within the plant. And both of the plant and the ants get a benefit from this relationship. The plant actually gets nutrients from the dead ants or the excrement of the ants. The ants obviously get a home. They can help protect this plant from any soil or bacteria. So kind of cool. A myrmecophyte.
So cool.
Pretty cool.
And a new vocab word.
Right.
Love it. I have one more example. This is the largest of the Talansias. It's called Talansia Xerographica, and it's bigger than my head, and it can get even bigger than that. Fun fact about this plant is that it was almost poached to extinction in the 80s, but luckily it's kind of bounced back, and that's pretty common, especially in the plant trade. Now, Alex, what can you tell us about how these plants reproduce?
So in these videos, we like to tell you about what the flower is, who's pollinating it, and how they're being reproduced. So air plants do flower. They do have blooms. You can see this one up here is blooming right now. It has a nice pink bloom on it. So air plants have bright flowers, red, a beautiful purple or pink like we have here. They often have no fragrance, but some can have hints of citrus, nutmeg, or even grape soda, which is kind of cool. Pollinators of air plants include bees, bats, or even hummingbirds on those long tubular flowers. And pollination, they produce seed pods, and inside that seed pod is obviously seeds that are covered in tiny hairs. Heather, can you guess how these seeds might be dispersed?
Well, I'm going on the air plant theme. I'm guessing they're dispersed by air.
Yes, so while they are air plants, they also have those hairs to help them float through the wind to find their new home. But before we talk about their new home, there's another way that these plants can reproduce, and that is through asexual reproduction, and that is to make pups. So you can see here, this is our bulbosa again. You can see that without pollination, they can just create more of themselves, creating pups off to the side, and just pop off and give you more plants. So Heather, tell us where these plants can be found.
Absolutely. So air plants, as you might have guessed, live up in the air. So these are not rooted in soil. Instead, they live on top of other plants, and we call this epiphytes. Epi means above, and phyte means plant. So these are plants on plants. Plants on other plants.
Plants on plants on plants.
So you can see here, these do have roots, and I'll show you an example here. They're those brown, really dry, twiggy things. They're almost, I want to say, vestigial, because they're not absorbing water and nutrients from the surroundings. They're, if anything, they're just there to anchor onto the substrate. So that begs the question, how do these plants get water and nutrients from their surroundings? And the answer is through the leaves. So air plants, Talansia, are covered in trichomes, and in this case, trichomes just means a layer of dead cells. They kind of resemble scales all over the surface of that plant. And when it rains, or when they're watered, these trichomes will absorb the water and create kind of a layer of water around the plant. So it makes the most of what might be an infrequent event. And you can actually see this happening. I'm going to dip this in water, actually. Yeah. And you can see those trichomes absorbing that water that completely changes color. So it's clear that that water has, yes, it's like painting.
Yeah.
So fun. So the amount of trichomes on a leaf can kind of give us a little hint as to where that plant is from. So like I mentioned, Talansia are from all different types of habitats, from really humid ones to really arid ones. And I'm using my detective skills to figure out that this is probably a more arid plant because it's got that gray, kind of silvery sheen. It's very fuzzy. So it definitely has more trichomes. Whereas Alex here has a plant that is still a Talansia, but it's very different looking. It's almost grass-like, very smooth,
yeah, very
green, and definitely has less trichomes. And then we have a blown-up picture here of what the surface of those plants look like. So here's a more arid Talansia and a much more tropical or humid one. So that's pretty cool.
Yes.
Now, since these are air plants, they're epiphytes, they don't need to be potted up in a traditional potting medium. So when it comes to displaying these plants, the options are kind of endless. So Alex, why don't you tell us some ways to display them?
Well, as you said, they are endless, but a cool different one that we have here is a gourd with an air plant just sitting on top. We have so many cool sculptures you can make. We have some in our office right now.
Yeah.
We have ornaments here. You can see we have a bike tire. We're here in the show house, like we said before. We have bike tires with air plants hanging down. On this side, we have a nice curtain with the Spanish moss, some wire rings. So because they don't have that need for soil, you can literally put them anywhere. Over here behind Heather, we have another bike tire with some shells to make them look like jellyfish. So really cool.
Now, how do you keep these things alive if they're up on your wall?
So the first thing is light. They do need light, but they can be pretty flexible. Like we said, we have some in our office. So bright to medium indirect light, they're gonna do pretty well. Now for water, they absorb through their leaves. So you can mist your air plants 3 or 4 times a week, or you can just take your air plant off of its sculpture and just go ahead and dunk it right in water for about 20 minutes once a week. So pretty easy to take care of. Really great plants for any.
Definitely. We hope that you guys learned something new about air plants this week. We have, as we mentioned, a couple displays in the show house, so make sure you come check those out.
Yes.
There's even more than we've shown you here today. And also, as Alex mentioned, these are pretty forgiving plants, so if you have a black thumb, like some people, hey, definitely check out our garden shop because we have some Talansia that you can actually take home for yourself. So Alex, go ahead and throw your plants in the air.
Like you just